Hi guys, and welcome on Cheaters and Jerks. This channel is about real-life cheating stories and consequences.
I didn't do anything, Alexander shouted, struggling against the officers. This is a mistake. You've got the wrong guy. But his protests fell on deaf ears. The evidence was overwhelming, and the police had no reason to doubt the setup. But let's start from the beginning, right after your subscription to this channel. Friday, 7:30 p.m. I stood in the kitchen, mindlessly stirring a pot of pasta sauce as the evening light faded outside our apartment windows. The rhythmic clink of the spoon against the pot was oddly soothing, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning inside me. I glanced at my watch. Vivian was late, again. As if on cue, I heard the jingle of keys at the front door. I took a deep breath, plastering on my best nonchalant expression as Vivian breezed in, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Hey, honey," she called out, her voice a little too bright. "Sorry I'm late. The team meeting ran over." I turned, leaning against the counter with a practiced ease. "No worries," I replied, my tone light. "I'm just whipping up some pasta. You hungry?" Vivian set her bag down, avoiding my eyes as she fussed with her hair. "Oh, I grabbed a bite with the team, but it smells amazing." As she moved closer to give me a quick peck on the cheek, I caught a whiff of something, a scent that definitely didn't belong to her. Spicy, expensive cologne, not mine. "Another late night at the office, huh?" I asked, keeping my voice casual as I turned back to the stove. "You've been burning the midnight oil a lot lately." Vivian laughed, but it sounded forced. "You know how it is during product launch season. The whole marketing team is going crazy." I nodded, watching her from the corner of my eye as she busied herself with pouring a glass of wine. Her phone buzzed and she practically lunged for it, her fingers flying over the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, just work stuff," she said quickly, shoving the phone into her pocket. "Listen, I'm beat. I think I'm going to take a quick shower and turn in early. Don't wait up, okay?" I watched her hurry out of the kitchen, my jaw clenching slightly. "Sure thing," I called after her. "Sleep tight, overachiever." As soon as I heard the bathroom door close, I let out a long, slow breath. The pasta sauce bubbled, forgotten, as I leaned heavily against the counter. The pieces were falling into place, each one a sharp jab to my gut. Over the next few days, I found myself hyper-aware of every little thing Vivian did. The way she'd startle when her phone chimed, the vague explanations for her late nights, the subtle changes in her appearance, new lingerie peeking out from her laundry, a haircut I hadn't noticed her get. It all came to a head on a Tuesday evening. I was lounging on the couch, pretending to be engrossed in a book, when Vivian rushed in, looking flustered. "Hey, babe," I said, glancing up. "Everything all right?" She nodded, a little too quickly. "Yeah, just running late for yoga. I forgot my bag upstairs." I watched as she darted up to our bedroom, returning moments later with her gym bag slung over her shoulder. In her haste, she'd left it half-zipped. "Have a good class," I called out as she headed for the door. "Don't pull anything important." As soon as the door clicked shut, I was on my feet. I bounded up the stairs, my heart pounding. Part of me felt guilty for what I was about to do, but a larger part, the part that had been piecing together this painful puzzle, needed answers. I found the bag where she'd left it on the bed, still partially open. Taking a deep breath, I unzipped it fully. On top were her usual workout clothes, neatly folded. But as I shifted them aside, something caught my eye. There, nestled between her yoga pants and a sports bra, was a small, shiny key attached to a black leather tag. It looked new, unmarked, and completely out of place in a gym bag. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. The weight of it felt heavy, significant. This wasn't just a key, it was evidence. Proof of something I'd been trying desperately not to believe. Well, I muttered, a grim smile tugging at my lips. "What have we here, Vivian?" I pocketed the key, carefully rearranging the bag's contents to look undisturbed. As I zipped it back up, my mind was already racing, formulating a plan. I'd play it cool, keep up the charade of the oblivious, supportive husband. But now, I had a lead, and I was going to follow it. Over the next week, I became a master of casual observation. Every time Vivian left for a meeting or a workout, I'd toss out a light-hearted comment. "Late night again, Viv? Should I save you a plate or order takeout for one?" I'd say, watching carefully as guilt flickered across her face. "Oh, don't wait up," she'd reply, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "You know how these team dinners can drag on." I'd nod, playing the role of the understanding spouse while inside. My suspicions grew stronger by the day. Finally, on a crisp Thursday evening, I decided it was time to act. As Vivian left for another mysterious engagement, I waited a few minutes before grabbing my keys and following her. I kept a safe distance as I tailed her car through the city streets, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. She turned into a residential area I didn't recognize, finally pulling into a driveway several blocks from our apartment. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the house. It belonged to Alexander, Vivian's personal trainer, a guy I'd met once at a party. I remembered his overly firm handshake, his too white smile, the way his eyes had lingered on Vivian a beat too long. I parked across the street, watching as Vivian got out of her car and walked up to the front door. She didn't even need to knock. She simply pulled out a key, the key, I realized with a jolt, and let herself in. As the door closed behind her, I sat there, my mind reeling. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle I'd been dreading to complete. The evidence was undeniable, laid out before me in stark, painful clarity. I stood in the shadows across the street, watching as the last light in Alexander's house flickered out. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. No, this was something else entirely, a mix of anticipation and cold determination. I'd been waiting for this moment for days, meticulously planning every detail. As I crossed the street, the weight of the copied key felt heavy in my pocket. It was a constant reminder of Vivian's betrayal, of the life I thought we had built together, crumbling around me. But tonight wasn't about her. Tonight was about Alexander. I approached the front door, my footsteps silent on the manicured lawn. The lock clicked open with a satisfying turn of the key, and I slipped inside, closing the door behind me without a sound. The interior of Alexander's house was exactly what I'd expected, a monument to his ego, chrome and leather everywhere, oversized mirrors reflecting the moonlight that filtered through the windows. It was like stepping into a showroom, not a home. Everything was too perfect, too pristine. It made my skin crawl. I took a deep breath, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness. This was just a reconnaissance mission, I reminded myself. Get in, get the lay of the land, get out. No need to rush. Moving through the living room, I couldn't help but notice the little details. A half-empty protein shake on the coffee table, a stack of fitness magazines next to an absurdly large TV. Everything screamed, "Look at me, I'm successful." It was pathetic. I made my way upstairs, careful to avoid the creaky step I'd noticed on my previous visit. The bedroom was easy to find. It was the only room with the door left slightly ajar. I peered inside, my stomach churning at the thought of Vivian in this room, in that bed. Shaking off the image, I continued my exploration. The home office was next, a sleek space with a view of the backyard. This would be perfect for what I had in mind. As I stood in the doorway of the office, a plan began to form in my mind. It wasn't enough to just catch them in the act. No, Alexander needed to pay. He needed to lose everything, just like I had. I locked up behind me as I left, my heart racing not with fear, but with a cold sense of satisfaction. I had what I needed now. The next few nights would be busy, but it would be worth it. Over the following evenings, I channeled my anger into meticulous planning. This wasn't just about exposing Vivian's infidelity anymore. It was about utterly destroying Alexander's life. I carefully selected the items I would use. My Rolex watch, a gift from Vivian on our 5th anniversary, a designer wallet I'd received as a congratulatory present for my recent promotion, and a leather-bound notebook filled with sketches and ideas from my work as an architect. Each item was personal, expensive, and irreplaceable. They were perfect for what I had in mind. I handled each item with bare hands, ensuring my DNA and fingerprints would be all over them. The police would have a field day when they found these. On the night of the break-in, I parked several blocks away, mindful of any potential security cameras. The walk to Alexander's house felt like an eternity, but with each step, my resolve strengthened. The key slid into the lock smoothly, and I was inside once again. The silence of the house was oppressive, but I felt calmer than I had in weeks. This was it. This was my moment. I started in the bedroom, placing the watch in the bedside drawer. My fingers lingered on the cool metal for a moment before I closed the drawer. Next, I moved to the living room, slipping the wallet under a couch cushion. Finally, I made my way to the home office. The notebook went on the desk, its pages slightly ajar, as if hastily stashed. I took a moment to survey my work, a grim smile playing on my lips. It was perfect. As a final touch, I went to the kitchen. I took a wine glass from the cabinet, wiped it down with my sleeve, and placed it on the counter. A faint smear of my cologne completed the scene. I locked the door behind me as I left, walking away into the night. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for weeks felt lighter now. Let Alexander try to explain this away, I thought. His perfect life was about to come crashing down around him, and I would be there to watch it burn. I woke up early the next morning, my heart racing with a mix of anticipation and nerves. The house felt eerily quiet as I made my way to the kitchen, brewing a strong cup of coffee to steel myself for what was to come. I glanced at the clock, 7:30 a.m. Perfect timing. Taking a deep breath, I picked up my phone and dialed the local police department. My fingers trembled slightly as I punched in the numbers, but I forced myself to remain calm. This was it, the moment of truth. "Hello, police department. How may I assist you?" A crisp voice answered. I cleared my throat, injecting a tremor of panic into my voice. "Yes, hello. I need to report a break-in. My home was burglarized last night." "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Can I get your name and address?" Elliot Chambers. I live at 1542 Maple Street." "All right, Mr. Chambers. Can you tell me what happened?" I launched into my carefully rehearsed story, allowing my voice to crack with emotion. I woke up this morning and noticed some things were missing. My watch, my wallet, and my work notebook. God, that notebook has years of my work in it. "I understand, sir. We'll send an officer to your location right away. Can you provide any more details about the missing items?" I rattled off descriptions of the planted items, emphasizing the importance of the notebook. It's a black leather-bound journal. It contains all my architectural designs and notes. I can't lose that. It's irreplaceable. The officer's voice softened with sympathy. "We'll do our best to recover your items, Mr. Chambers. Is there anything else you can tell us that might help with the investigation?" This was my chance. I took a deep breath, as if hesitating. "Well, I have a GPS tracker in my notebook. For security purposes, I can give you the location if that helps." "That's excellent, sir. That could be crucial in recovering your property. Can you provide us with the location?" I recited the address I had memorized, Alexander's house. The officer assured me they would investigate immediately, and I played the part of the distraught but cooperative victim to perfection. "Thank you, officer. Please, let me know if you find anything. I just want my things back." As I hung up the phone, a small smile played at the corners of my mouth. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was wait. 2 days crawled by, each hour feeling like an eternity. I went about my daily routine, all the while keeping my phone close, waiting for that crucial call. On the afternoon of the second day, it finally came. I answered on the first ring. "Hello? Mr. Chambers? This is Officer Johnson from the police department." My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, officer. Have you found anything?" There was a pause, and I could practically hear the confusion in his voice. "Mr. Chambers, we've located some of your stolen items, but you're not going to believe where we found them." I gripped the phone tighter, forcing myself to sound bewildered. "What do you mean? Where are they?" "Well, sir, we executed a search warrant based on the GPS location you provided. The items were discovered at a residence belonging to a man named Alexander Roth. He's a personal trainer at a local gym." I covered the phone with my hand, stifling a laugh that threatened to bubble up. When I returned to the call, I injected pure confusion into my voice. "Alexander? I don't even know the guy. How would he get my things?" The officer continued. "Mr. Roth was arrested on the spot. His fingerprints were found on some of the items, including your notebook." I let out a gasp of feigned shock. That's unbelievable. I can't imagine why he would do this." "We're still investigating, Mr. Chambers. We'll need you to come down to the station to identify your property and make a formal statement. Can you do that today? Of course. I'll be there as soon as possible. Thank you, officer. As I ended the call, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. Everything was falling into place perfectly. I grabbed my keys and headed out, eager to see the fruits of my labor. When I arrived at Alexander Street, it was a scene of chaos. Police cars lined the curb, their lights flashing and sirens wailing. Neighbors peered out from behind curtains, whispering and pointing as the drama unfolded. And there, in the midst of it all, was Alexander. The police were hauling him out of his house in handcuffs, his face a mask of confusion and anger. I couldn't help but savor the moment as I watched from my car. "I didn't do anything," Alexander shouted, struggling against the officers. "This is a mistake. You've got the wrong guy." But his protests fell on deaf ears. The evidence was overwhelming, and the police had no reason to doubt the setup. As they shoved him into the back of a patrol car, I noticed something that made my heart soar with vindictive glee. Vivian's car parked right outside Alexander's house. I could only imagine the look on her face as she watched her lover being dragged away, accused of a crime he didn't commit. The thought of her panic, her confusion, her guilt, it was almost too delicious to bear. As the police cars pulled away, their sirens fading into the distance, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The first act of my revenge was complete, and it had gone off without a hitch. Alexander's life was in shambles, and Vivian's reckoning was yet to come. I watched Vivian stumble through the front door, her usual grace and poise completely shattered. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, her eyes darting around the room before finally landing on me. I could see the panic etched across her face as she tried to compose herself. "Rough day at work?" I asked, keeping my tone light, but letting a hint of venom seep through. I couldn't help but savor the moment, watching her squirm under my gaze. Vivian opened her mouth to respond, but all that came out was a choked sound. She cleared her throat and tried again. Yes, just a lot going on at the office." I nodded, feigning sympathy. "I'm sure. You've been working such long hours lately. Must be exhausting." "Nah." She mumbled something in agreement and made a beeline for the stairs, probably hoping to escape to our bedroom, but I wasn't done yet. "Oh, by the way," I called out, causing her to freeze mid-step. "I got a call from the police today. Apparently, there was a break-in at our house. Can you believe it?" Vivian's shoulders tensed visibly. "What? When did this happen?" I shrugged, keeping my face neutral. "While we were both at work, I guess. They caught the guy, though. Some personal trainer from that fancy gym downtown. Alexander something or other." The color drained from Vivian's face so quickly I thought she might faint. She gripped the banister tightly, her knuckles turning white. "Oh," she whispered. That's terrible." I watched her retreat upstairs, savoring every moment of her discomfort. The next few days were a delicious torture for her. I could see the strain in her eyes, the way she flinched every time her phone buzzed. She was coming apart at the seams, and I was loving every second of it. It took nearly a week before she finally broke. We were sitting across from each other at the dinner table, the silence between us thick and oppressive. Vivian's hands shook as she pushed her food around her plate. "Elliot," she said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper, I need to talk to you about something." I raised an eyebrow, feigning curiosity. "Oh? What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I know I've been distant lately, and I'm sure you've noticed that I've been stressed. It's just, work has been really demanding, and I've been dealing with some personal issues." I let her ramble on, watching as she tried to dance around the truth without actually lying. It was almost entertaining, in a pathetic sort of way. "And I know I should have talked to you sooner, but I didn't want you to worry. And then there's Alexander." The moment his name left her lips, I knew it was time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out her phone, sliding it across the table towards her. The screen was open to her text messages with Alexander, a damning collection of intimate exchanges and plans for secret rendezvous. Vivian's words died in her throat as she stared at the phone. Her face crumpled, a mix of shock, guilt, and fear washing over her features. I leaned back in my chair, letting a cold smile spread across my face. You thought I didn't know? I didn't need to say the words out loud. My eyes conveyed the message clearly enough. Tears welled up in Vivian's eyes. Elliot, I can explain. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Save it. I think we're well past explanations at this point, don't you? She opened her mouth to protest, but I was already standing up, pushing my chair back with a screech. I'll be sleeping in the guest room tonight. I suggest you start packing your things. The next morning, I was at my lawyer's office before they even opened. I had already compiled all the evidence of Vivian's affair, including the texts, bank statements showing suspicious transactions, and even some photos I had managed to obtain. My lawyer looked impressed as he flipped through the file. You've certainly been thorough, Mr. Harris, he said, nodding approvingly. With this evidence, we should be able to negotiate very favorable terms for you in the divorce settlement. I smiled grimly. Good. I want this over with as quickly as possible. The divorce papers were drawn up within days. When they arrived at our house, I made sure I was there to see Vivian's reaction. She sat at the kitchen table, her eyes scanning the document, growing wider with each page she turned. Elliot, she gasped, looking up at me. This leaves me with almost nothing. I shrugged, unmoved by the devastation in her eyes. You made your choices, Vivian. Now you get to live with the consequences. She tried to argue, to plead, but I had already turned my back on her. As I walked out of the kitchen, I could hear her quiet sobs behind me. But I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no remorse, just a cold emptiness where my love for her used to be. Vivian had underestimated me, thinking she could play me for a fool. Now she was paying the price, and I couldn't bring myself to care. I stood at the window of my new downtown loft, swirling a glass of whiskey and watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The past few months had been a whirlwind, but I'd come out on top. Vivian and Alexander, they were just footnotes in my story now. My phone buzzed on the sleek glass coffee table. I picked it up, expecting a message from my latest Tinder match. Instead, I saw an unknown number. I'm sorry for everything. I snorted, a wry smile twisting my lips. Sorry? Now? After everything they'd put me through? I deleted the message without a second thought and tossed the phone back onto the table. Too little, too late, I muttered, taking another sip of whiskey. I'd heard through the grapevine about Alexander's fall from grace. The charges had stuck, just as I'd planned. My carefully planted evidence had been the nail in his coffin. His gym had fired him immediately, and word spread quickly in the fitness community. No one wanted to touch a thief with a 10-foot pole. Vivian had tried to reach out to him, or so I'd heard. But Alexander, bitter and defeated, wanted nothing to do with her anymore. Can't say I blamed him. Vivian had a habit of leaving destruction in her wake. Speaking of Vivian, she hadn't fared much better. Our divorce had been swift and brutal. I'd made sure she was left with next to nothing. It was almost comical how quickly her so-called friends had abandoned her. The whispers followed her everywhere, her reputation in tatters. Should have thought about that before you decided to play happy families with the gym rat, I said to the empty room, raising my glass in a mock toast. I'd blocked her on every platform, of course. No need for her drama to bleed into my new life. And what a life it was. I'd thrown myself into work with a renewed vigor, and the results were showing. My latest project was set to win a prestigious architectural award. My social calendar was fuller than ever. Turns out, being the wronged party in a salacious affair had its perks. I was the hot commodity at every gathering, people falling over themselves to hear my story, to offer sympathy, to get close to the man who'd risen from the ashes. And dating? Let's just say I wasn't lacking for company. There was something liberating about being single again, about the thrill of the chase. No more coming home to the same person every night, wondering if they were really there, or if their mind was elsewhere. I drained the last of my whiskey and set the glass down. The city stretched out before me, a playground of possibilities. I'd won, plain and simple. Vivian and Alexander had underestimated me, thought they could play me for a fool. But I'd shown them. I'd shown everyone. I wasn't just out for revenge. I'd reshaped my entire life. And damn, if it didn't feel good. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. The night was young, and I had a date with a stunning brunette who worked in finance. Life was good, and it was only getting better. As I locked up, I spared one last thought for Vivian and Alexander. Hope it was worth it, I said to the empty hallway, a cold smile playing on my lips. Then I stepped into the elevator, leaving the past behind me once and for all. I had a new life to live, and I intended to make the most of every single moment. Hey everyone, if you found this story gripping and want more jaw-dropping tales, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you're always in the loop. So you're always in the loop. So you're always in the loop. So you're always